For decades, Princess Diana's legendary sapphire tiara was believed to be locked away with no clear heir. Whispers of secret vaults and concealed codicils only deepened the mystery. But nothing could prepare the royal family or the world for what Prince William revealed in a private council meeting. This wasn't just a jewelry handoff, it was a direct challenge to palace hierarchy, and it was all in Diana's handwriting. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The sapphire tiara, often called the crown of Diana's fire, had long been considered untouchable, an artifact suspended in time. Gifted to her privately by the Spencer family but worn only during moments of fierce transformation, it carried more than diamonds and sapphires, it carried symbolism. Unlike the Cambridge lover's knot or other royal heirlooms, this piece remained shrouded in uncertainty following her tragic death. For years, speculation ran wild. Some believed it was buried with her. Others claimed it had been discreetly handed to Charles to hold for Princess Charlotte one day. The palace, as always, remained silent, but those closest to the inner workings knew something far more deliberate was unfolding behind closed doors. That silence shattered when Prince William stepped into a confidential royal session and delivered the envelope. It was not sealed in wax, nor adorned with royal insignia, but velvet, deep navy, with a hand-stitched label, for William's eyes only. Inside it, a single sheet of Diana's stationery, her signature curled across the bottom in unmistakable ink, but it was the words above that detonated across the room like a royal bombshell. For Catherine, my legacy belongs with her. The impact was immediate. Some members rose in disbelief, others sat frozen, lips pursed, eyes darting toward the king. The room's air reportedly changed. It wasn't a mere accessory being discussed, it was Diana's voice rising from the grave. William's voice didn't tremble. He spoke with clarity. He explained the letter's origins and why it had taken him years to open it. But what echoed more than anything was Diana's choice not only to entrust Catherine with the tiara, but to bypass royal tradition in doing so. She had rejected the idea of crown ownership. This was a personal inheritance. Her words declared it, her handwriting confirmed it, and William, Diana's eldest son, was the courier of a promise too sacred to ignore. It wasn't about protocol. It was about protection. Diana had seen something in Catherine long before the world did. A quiet strength. A natural resistance to the royal machinery. A woman who wouldn't be consumed by the same shadows that had engulfed her. The ripple effect couldn't be contained. It wasn't just about who wore the tiara, it was about who controlled Diana's story. In that single moment, the narrative shifted. Camilla's authority, the traditional order of passing down royal jewels through sovereign lineage, even the invisible hierarchy of Windsor influence everything trembled. And while the press remained unaware of the exact contents of the meeting, whispers began to circulate. A private document, a locked pouch, a letter from Diana herself. Something had changed, and the monarchy could feel it. But what William unveiled wasn't just a sentimental keepsake. It was a calculated legacy move that Diana had orchestrated long before the monarchy ever saw Catherine coming. What else did Diana leave behind? A sealed pouch hidden inside her private red dispatch box may have held the final proof of where her heart truly rested. And when William finally opened it years after her passing, the words he read could rewrite royal succession dynamics forever. The pouch had remained untouched for more than 2 decades, quietly secured within the same chamber that once stored Lord Mountbatten's military dispatches and intelligence memos. Its existence wasn't entirely unknown, but it was wrapped in reverence, whispered about in the way one speaks of a ghost that still has something left to say. Officially, it was catalogued as a personal belonging, protected under Diana's private estate classification, but insiders say it was William who was made aware of it first and told never to open it until he felt the time was right. What that time would look like, no one could have imagined, not even William. In the months leading up to the revelation, William had been in a state of internal chaos. The royal household was undergoing one of its most tense transformations in modern history. Rumors of succession talks swirled, Camilla's growing influence became undeniable, and Catherine, though dignified and steady, found herself constantly walking a fine line between deference and dominance. Amidst it all, William returned to the pouch. Night after night, he reportedly stared at the velvet folds, unable to summon the courage to break its seal. It wasn't just fear of what it might say, it was fear of what it might require him to do. And when he finally did unseal it, alone and sleepless in the same room where his mother once wrote her final letters, what he found wasn't just a message, it was a directive. Diana's letter was written in unmistakable blue ink, her words calm but haunting. "Catherine is the woman who shall carry my strength forward," she wrote. "She does not wear the crown, but she holds the soul of it." William reportedly read the line again and again, unable to believe what he was seeing. There was no ambiguity, no soft suggestion. It was a command from beyond. What stunned him more was the tone Diana's words danced with both love and warning. She referenced the shifting eyes and clutching hands that would someday try to rewrite history. The entire letter hinted that Diana anticipated resistance, that she knew her legacy would one day be challenged, and that Catherine would be the one to defend it not with force, but with presence. What followed was more than a revelation. It was a moral obligation. William couldn't simply ignore it. Yet, for over a year, he kept the letter hidden even from Catherine. Sources suggest he feared it would place unbearable pressure on her, especially during a period when the palace was tightening its grip on tradition and protocol. But the deeper he watched Camilla's symbolic rise, and the louder the whispers grew about reassigning Diana's legacy, the more the words in that letter burned into his conscience. This wasn't just about jewelry. It was about justice. Diana had chosen Catherine not for title or rank, but for resilience. And in that moment, William realized he wasn't just her son anymore. He was now her witness, her executor, and her last line of defense. But if William's revelation shook the foundation, it was nothing compared to the chain reaction it would unleash, beginning with Queen Camilla's first attempt to block the transfer. Camilla's silence shattered the moment the tiara resurfaced. Behind palace gates, she launched a private but furious objection. Not only did she claim tradition was being violated, but some say she viewed the inheritance as a direct insult to her queenship, and what she did next drew gasps from royal aides. The confrontation began not in a grand announcement, but in a curt exchange during a confidential family meeting, where William, firm but composed, disclosed Diana's handwritten directive. The moment he referenced his mother's sealed letter, naming Catherine as the rightful heir to the sapphire tiara, Camilla's expression reportedly darkened. She did not speak immediately, but within hours, her private secretary contacted the palace legal team, reportedly inquiring about the validity and authenticity of Diana's document. What followed was a surge of behind-the-scenes interference, as whispers emerged that Camila had requested the letter undergo forensic examination. She allegedly demanded handwriting. Specialists confirmed Diana's penmanship and questioned the integrity of the sealed pouch, implying it could have been manipulated or influenced. The implication was explosive, suggesting William, the future king, could be leveraging his mother's legacy for political or emotional advantage. Clarence House aides sprang into action. Their objective was clear: delay. Plans were already in motion for Catherine to wear the tiara at an upcoming state reception, a subtle but symbolic moment approved by the king himself. But suddenly, staffers began requesting more time to review the protocol. Internal emails were flagged for higher clearance. Official statements were postponed. It was as if someone had pulled the emergency brake on a moving train, and all signs pointed to Camilla's camp. Privately, tensions escalated even further. Charles, torn between his loyalty to Camilla and his duty as monarch, reportedly called for a meeting behind locked doors. According to one senior aide, the conversation turned raw and emotional. Camilla argued that precedence was being shattered, that Diana's legacy, though sacred, should not dictate present-day royal policy. Charles, however, is said to have responded with an icy resolve. "This is not a battle you need to fight," he reportedly told her. "Let the past rest with dignity." For Camilla, it was a brutal blow. She returned to Clarence House without a word to the press, but her frustration didn't remain hidden for long. In a moment of rare vulnerability, Camila reached out to Princess Anne, perhaps the only royal whose counsel she both feared and respected. Anne, known for her strategic neutrality, did not offer support or condemnation. She listened, paused, and merely said, "If it was Diana's wish, it must be honoured." That remark, however subtle, reportedly left Camila reeling. The next day, Camila cancelled a highly anticipated public engagement, citing personal distress. The cancellation triggered a ripple through royal media, fueling speculation of an internal rift too large to ignore. But while Camila retreated from the spotlight, someone else was already preparing to step into it and wear the tiara before the world. The moment was brief, but history-shattering. At a state reception packed with foreign dignitaries and royal watchers, Catherine emerged wearing the sapphire tiara for the first time. What was meant to be a quiet honor turned into a thunderous statement of legacy, allegiance, and royal rebirth. No warning was given. The guest list had been tightly managed, the press releases generic, and the palace had intentionally downplayed the event's significance. But when the official cars pulled up to the grand hall and Catherine stepped into the reception, the atmosphere shifted in an instant. The flashbulbs that followed were not for her gown, her smile, or even her diplomatic presence. They were for what sat atop her head, Princess Diana's sapphire tiara, the one artifact that had remained untouched for decades, the symbol that embodied both grief and rebellion. Authorized directly by King Charles without a single word from Clarence House, its appearance was deliberate. And its impact? Immediate. Gasps echoed through the room as diplomats leaned to whisper, royal observers turned pale, and media correspondents scrambled to revise their coverage in real time. Europe's tabloids were flooded within minutes. Headlines like, "Diana lives through Catherine" and "The tiara speaks louder than words" overtook international front pages by morning. Camila, originally expected to attend the event with the king, made a last-minute decision to change her seating and limit her visibility. Sources claim her expression remained fixed throughout the evening, but her silence spoke volumes. It wasn't just that she hadn't been told in advance, it was that she had been overruled. The symbolism of Catherine's appearance was not lost on anyone in the room. While others walked the red carpet, Catherine redefined it. She wasn't just fulfilling a royal role, she was embodying Diana's unfinished chapter, and William stood beside her with unmistakable pride. His posture, unwavering and defensive, signaled something more than protocol, it was protection. And when Catherine took the podium for her brief remarks, she chose her words carefully, offering what appeared to be a subtle tribute. Some legacies are not worn, they're carried. The phrase drew murmurs, and every pair of eyes turned toward the tiara. Within the palace walls, however, the scene played out very differently. Few outside Charles's direct circle had known the tiara would make its reappearance so soon. Even fewer understood the full weight of Diana's letter. Some royal households felt bypassed, even betrayed. One senior official reportedly called the timing reckless, while another confessed to colleagues, "We've crossed into a different monarchy now." The reaction wasn't just administrative, it was existential. Because in that one appearance, Catherine had rewritten not only optics, but order. But behind the glamour and applause, darker murmurs began to spread of an internal plot to suppress Diana's posthumous influence once and for all. Insiders have long whispered about a quiet campaign within Clarence House to reshape Diana's legacy, minimize it, contain it, even redirect it. But a recent leak suggests there was an organized effort to reassign the tiara to another royal and bury Diana's final wishes in the process. The revelation didn't come from a press release or an official briefing. It came from a leak deliberate, surgical, and laced with implications that could fracture the monarchy's public trust for years to come. According to internal memos, verified by at least 2 senior aides no longer in royal service, a covert initiative had been under discussion for years. Relocate Diana's sapphire tiara to the Crown's permanent archive. Officially, this move would be in line with preservation protocol. Unofficially, it would erase the possibility of it ever being worn again. One draft even went further, proposing that the tiara be assigned to Princess Charlotte at a later date, contingent on undefined future suitability assessments. What was glaringly absent in every version of the plan? Catherine's name. The implications were staggering. The woman whom Diana had hand-picked, the one now carrying the emotional weight of her memory on the public stage, had been deliberately excluded from discussions about the very symbol Diana entrusted to her. The justification? That invoking Diana's legacy so visibly was too emotionally destabilizing for the institution. The word destabilizing appeared multiple times across communications. It was clear this wasn't about protocol. It was about power, about control, about muting the memory of a woman who, even in death, refused to conform. Further digging revealed that the proposal had been championed by a Clarence House archivist with ties to legacy restructuring projects. Working alongside a senior protocol advisor loyal to Camilla's inner circle, the operation had been buried under innocuous language and veiled within broader discussions of heritage consolidation. But when the tiara reappeared atop Catherine's head at the state reception, their careful planning unraveled. William's dramatic disclosure of Diana's letter wasn't a rogue act of sentiment, it was a direct counterstrike against an agenda years in the making. And the institution's discomfort with Diana's ghost was now fully exposed. In the aftermath, former palace staffers began speaking off the record. One described the mood at Clarence House as panicked damage control. Another claimed there were late-night calls made to key press contacts, urging them to avoid coverage that over-romanticized the moment. But it was too late. Public sentiment had surged behind Catherine, and the symbolism of Diana's heirloom resting on her head became untouchable. The internal effort to erase that connection had not only failed, it had backfired spectacularly. And so, in the shadows of leaked documents and buried intentions, the public finally saw the raw truth. Diana's legacy had enemies within the walls that once failed her, and now they were being exposed. Yet while palace officials scrambled for damage control, someone even closer to Diana stepped forward to confirm the truth, and with it, delivered a devastating blow to the skeptics. She had remained silent for nearly 30 years, but in a stunning interview following the tiara's unveiling, one of Diana's closest personal friends and private confidantes stepped forward. And what she revealed about Diana's intentions left no room for doubt or denial. Her name had never been part of the royal press machine. A discreet figure who once moved in and out of Kensington Palace through side entrances and back gardens, this confidant had vanished from the spotlight after Diana's death until now. Her return wasn't planned, nor orchestrated by any palace faction. It was a response. A response to the mounting distortions, the half-truths, the attempts to recast Diana's legacy through cold protocol and whispered politics. In her words, it was time to say what Diana couldn't. Her voice trembled only once when she described watching Diana seal the now infamous pouch. She had been there that night. Candlelight. Ink. Silence. She didn't need to explain it, the confidant said. I saw it in her eyes. She knew exactly who would carry her name forward. What followed was nothing short of a seismic rupture to the palace's attempted damage control. Diana, according to this confidant, had long envisioned a future where a woman unlike any before would rise not through rank, but through quiet resilience. She'd often speak of her hope that William would marry someone who could see through the curtain and still choose to walk behind it. Even before Catherine entered William's life, Diana had described the kind of woman she prayed he'd find. Someone with emotional depth and quiet steel, she said. The confidant admitted that Diana never trusted the idea of Camila becoming a royal icon. In fact, she feared it. Diana believed the institution needed healing, not performance, and that healing could only come from someone who had lived through humiliation and stood anyway. Then came the moment that could not be refuted. The confidant confirmed she personally witnessed Diana inscribe the letter. She watched her write Catherine's name years before fate and choice ever brought the two women into the same lineage. The pouch was sealed not as a dramatic flourish, but as a safeguard. Diana had known the monarchy's capacity for erasure. She'd watched her own voice be twisted, her gestures minimized, her truth suppressed. So she made her son the executor of her final message and placed her legacy in the hands of the only woman she believed could protect it without becoming consumed by it. The confidante's revelations hit the public with thunder. Even previously neutral commentators began to speak of Catherine not just as Diana's successor but as her fulfillment. Strategic. A legacy transfer as deliberate as any royal succession, and far more powerful because it came from the people's princess, not the crown. And within the palace? Panic. The internal factions that had worked to suppress Diana's voice found themselves exposed. The effort to spin the narrative now seemed desperate, petty, and transparent. But as the truth poured out, another twist came from within the House of Windsor itself, one that threatened to rewrite not only who wore the tiara, but who deserved to. In a move few anticipated, Princess Beatrice reportedly voiced her discontent over Diana's inheritance plan. Citing her own sidelined status and unrecognized loyalty to the crown, Beatrice demanded an internal review, sparking a royal divide that Charles feared could spin out of control. What had been, until now, a quiet storm brewing beneath the royal surface finally broke into open tension. Behind the grandeur of palace walls, Beatrice, known for her quiet dedication and unwavering presence at royal engagements, made her frustration known in unmistakable terms. According to multiple sources, she approached Prince Edward in private, requesting an internal clarification of the tiara's reassignment, citing deep concern over the bypassing of what she called sovereign continuity. She did not question Diana's love, but she did challenge the process. Beatrice reportedly felt overlooked, diminished in standing despite years of loyal service, while Catherine, in her view, had been vaulted into symbolic supremacy on the strength of sentiment, not structure. But it wasn't just a personal grievance, it was a constitutional question. Was royal inheritance now being shaped by emotion or by the bloodlines of future monarchs? Her protest did not go unnoticed. Within days, Beatrice's concern was quietly echoed in Camilla's inner circle, where sympathies for Beatrice had quietly existed for years. Queen Camila, still reeling from her public retreat, reportedly offered Beatrice her ear, giving the young royal a platform to express what others dared not say aloud. The outcome was swift and serious. A confidential meeting was convened by King Charles himself. Though the palace denied any such gathering, insiders confirmed the event a closed-door session involving Charles, Edward, Anne, and key constitutional advisors. The goal was de-escalation, but what emerged was confirmation of how dangerously fractured the House of Windsor had become. The divide extended far beyond Beatrice. Princess Eugenie, known for her diplomatic sensibility, chose silence. But Zara Phillips, unwavering and blunt, made her loyalty to Catherine unequivocally clear. Diana made her choice, she allegedly told a cousin, and none of us outrank her in that. This widening rift among the younger generation was not just about jewels, it was about identity, power, and recognition. The monarchy was shifting, and for those who had been patiently waiting in the shadows, it felt like a betrayal. Whispers of entitlement, rumors of rivalry. The royal family was cracking open, and the public was watching. But the public, unlike the institution, had already made up its mind. When news of Beatrice's objection leaked, sympathy didn't pour in for her. It erupted, instead, in defense of Catherine. Headlines painted her as a woman under siege, caught in the crosshairs of jealousy, tradition, and silent sabotage. Social media surged with messages of support. Editorials spoke of how women who rise in silence are always the first to be questioned when they finally claim their space. Far from destabilizing Catherine, Beatrice's protest only deepened the emotional connection between Catherine and the people. But while internal battles brewed, the ultimate validation came not from bloodlines but from Diana's own mother, whose final gift cemented what Diana had begun. Thought to be lost for years, a sealed codicil from Diana's mother was quietly unsealed by the family solicitor. And inside, a single line confirming the sapphire tiara's rightful future and the woman Diana had once introduced as the calm in royal chaos. If you won, For decades, the codicil had remained untouched, buried deep within the legal estate of Frances Shand Kidd, Diana's enigmatic and fiercely protective mother. Few knew it existed, and fewer still were aware of its contents. It wasn't part of Diana's formal estate, nor catalogued among her will's official attachments. It was a personal, handwritten postscript, unfiled, unprocessed, and intentionally veiled until the right moment. And when the solicitor, bound by the late matriarch's private instruction, unsealed it amid the growing royal unrest, its revelation became the final voice in an echo chamber of ghosts. The codicil read simply, "Catherine shall wear what Diana preserved. She is balm to legacy and fire to the future." No debate, no ambiguity, only truth. The shock reverberated not from the words themselves, but from their alignment. For the second time in weeks, a message from beyond the grave had surfaced, and both pointed to the same woman, Catherine. Diana's letter and Frances's codicil, penned separately and years apart, now echoed as one. The significance was staggering. This wasn't just mother and daughter agreeing. It was two generations of defiance reaching across time to safeguard a legacy they feared the institution would smother. And in that confirmation, something irreversible shifted not only for Catherine but for the monarchy itself. When King Charles was presented with the codicil during a private family briefing, he reportedly stood in long silence. No objection. No counsel summoned. Just a single nod before folding the page and requesting it be archived with Diana's original letter under royal seal. For those present, that moment was not administrative, it was monumental. With Charles's unspoken assent, the final seal of legitimacy was placed on Catherine's claim, not by force, not by political maneuvering, but by lineage and love, by memory and fate. There would be no further contest, no more closed-door debates. The monarchy had spoken, and this time it had done so through the voices it once tried to silence. In private, William and Catherine shared what insiders describe as one of their most emotional moments since their wedding. William, carrying the weight of his mother's unfulfilled desires, reportedly broke down when recounting Frances's words. For Catherine, the burden wasn't just the tiara, it was the weight of history, the pain of inheritance, and the echo of a mother-in-law she never met, but was now bound to more tightly than any royal protocol could define. That night, the two did not celebrate. They reflected. The firestorm had not passed, but the fog had begun to clear. And for the first time, the palace itself began to shift not in structure, but in soul. Behind the scenes, preparations quietly began to redefine Catherine's role. Not simply as consort, not just future queen, but as something far more enduring, a steward of legacy, a living symbol of resilience, a vessel for the monarchy's most fragile truths. The old order had tried to bury the past, but the past had risen, and it had chosen its guardian. But one question still lingered. Why had William waited until now to reveal the letter? The answer, buried in his own guilt and hope, would redefine everything. In a rare, raw confession to a senior royal biographer, William revealed the true reason he delayed disclosing Diana's letter. The answer wasn't strategy, it was pain. And what he feared most wasn't royal backlash, it was failing his mother's final request. For years, the letter lived in silence with him, not locked in a vault, not archived in history, but folded into the quiet corners of his private life, carried like a wound that never closed. William admitted that he had tried more than once to open it, only to stop himself at the last second, overwhelmed by the weight of what it might demand. Each time he told himself the moment was wrong. The palace was unstable, the pressures were too high. Catherine was already carrying the burden of expectation. He convinced himself that unveiling Diana's voice too soon might break what little peace remained. And so the letter stayed sealed, not out of neglect, but out of fear. The moment everything changed came during Catherine's darkest hour, a period the palace never named publicly, but which insiders describe as a season of quiet dread. William confessed that one night, when uncertainty felt unbearable and the future felt fragile, he returned to the letter with trembling hands. Alone, exhausted, afraid. This time, he did not stop. He opened it. And as he read his mother's words, naming Catherine as the one who would carry her strength forward, something inside him broke and healed at the same time. He realized he had been protecting the letter from the world, but also protecting himself from the truth it carried, that the woman he loved had already been chosen by the woman he lost. His fear had always been that revealing the letter would burden Catherine with impossible expectations, force her into a legacy she didn't ask for, and ignite conflicts she could not control. But the opposite happened. When he finally shared the truth with her, it didn't crush her, it fortified her. The doubts softened, the isolation lifted. The weight shifted from something imposed to something embraced. And for William, that moment rewired everything. The obsession with guarding Diana's memory transformed into a responsibility to release it. Protecting her legacy no longer meant hiding it. It meant trusting the woman she chose to carry it forward in the open. In telling his story, William did not sound like a future king. He sounded like a son who had waited too long to keep a promise he was terrified to fulfill. The public response to his confession was immediate and overwhelming. Sympathy surged. The narrative shifted from royal politics to human vulnerability. People no longer saw a calculated move. They saw a man grappling with grief, loyalty, and fear, trying to honor a mother whose voice never left him. And in that vulnerability, Catherine's quiet strength became clearer than ever. She hadn't chased the tiara. The tiara had found her through perseverance, patience, and unbreakable resolve. William ended his confession with a vow spoken not for the institution, but for his mother. A vow that echoed far beyond the walls of any palace. "She wears the tiara," he said softly. "But it's my mother's voice the world now hears again." In that single sentence, the inheritance was no longer about jewels, hierarchy, or tradition. It was about truth finally stepping out of the shadows and standing where it always belonged. And as the tiara rests where Diana always intended, the question isn't whether Catherine belongs, but whether the monarchy can withstand the power she now represents. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.